The White Cliffs of Dover, part of the North Downs Formation, is the region of English coastline facing the Strait of Dover and France. The cliff face, which reaches a height of 350 feet, 110 meters, owes its striking appearance to its composition of chalk accented by streaks of black flint. The cliffs, on both sides of the town of Dover in Kent, stretch for 8 miles, 13 kilometers. A section of coastline encompassing the cliffs was purchased by the National Trust in 2016. The cliffs are part of the Dover to Kingsdown Cliffs Site of Special Scientific Interest and Special Area of Conservation. Location: the cliffs are part of the coastline of Kent in England between approximately 51 degrees 06 N 1 degrees 14 E and 51 degrees 12 N 1 degrees 24 E, at the point where Great Britain is closest to continental Europe. On a clear day they are visible from the French coast. The chalk cliffs of the Alabaster coast of Normandy in France are part of the same geological system. The White Cliffs are at one end of the Kent Downs designated area of outstanding natural beauty. In 1999 a sustainable National Trust visitor centre was built in the area. The Gateway building, designed by Van Heiningen and Howard Architects, houses a restaurant, an Geology. About 70 million years ago Great Britain and much of Europe were submerged under a great sea. The sea bottom was covered with white mud formed from fragments of coccoliths, the skeletons of tiny algae that floated in the surface waters and sank to the bottom during the Cretaceous period and, together with the remains of bottom living creatures, formed muddy sediments. It is thought that the sediments were deposited very slowly, probably half a millimeter a year, equivalent to about 180 coccoliths piled one on top of another. Up to 500 meters of sediments were deposited in some areas. The weight of overlying sediments caused the deposits to become consolidated into chalk. Subsequent earth movements related to the formation of the Alps raised the seafloor deposits above sea level. Until the end of the last glacial period, the British Isles were part of continental Europe, linked by the unbroken wheeled Artois anticline, a ridge that acted as a natural dam to hold back a large freshwater proglacial lake, now submerged under the North Sea. The land masses remained connected until between 450,000 and 180,000 years ago, when at least 2 catastrophic glacial lake outburst floods breached the anticline and destroyed the ridge that connected Britain to Europe. A land connection across the southern North Sea existed intermittently at later times when periods of glaciation resulted in lower sea levels. At the end of the last glacial period, around 10,000 years ago, rising sea levels finally severed the last land connection. The cliff's chalk face shows horizontal bands of dark-colored flint, which is composed of the remains of sea sponges and siliceous planktonic microorganisms that hardened into the microscopic quartz crystals. Quartz silica-filled cavities left by dead marine creatures which are found as flint fossils, especially the internal molds of Micraster echinoids. Several different ocean floor species such as brachiopods, bivalves, crinoids, and sponges can be found in the chalk deposits, as can shark's teeth. In some areas, layers of soft, grey chalk known as a hard ground complex can be seen. Hard grounds are thought to reflect disruptions in the steady accumulation of sediment when sedimentation ceased, and/or the loose surface sediments were stripped away by currents or slumping, exposing the older hardened chalk sediment. A single hard ground may have been exhumed 16 or more times before the sediments were compacted and hardened, lithified, to form chalk. Cliff erosion and change. The cliffs have been eroding slowly, but in the past 150 years they have been eroding 10 times faster than they did before. The change is likely due to the construction of sea walls and groins, the loss of beaches beneath the cliffs, and stronger storms hitting the coastline due to climate change and the rise of CO2 in the ocean. Scientists say that the English Channel has eaten away at the cliffs at a rate of 8.7 inches to just over a foot per year. 1,000 years ago, that rate was 3/4 of an inch to 2.3 inches per year. Over the years, the cliffs began to crumble as well, and there have been sudden cliff falls due to the erosion of the chalk. In 2001, a large chunk of the cliff edge, as large as a football pitch, fell into the channel. Another large section collapsed on the 15th of March 2012. History. A possible Iron Age hill fort has been discovered at Dover, on the site of the later castle. The area was also inhabited during the Roman period, when Dover was used as a port. A lighthouse survives from this era, one of a pair at Dover, which helped shipping navigate the port. It is likely the area around the surviving lighthouse was inhabited in the early medieval period, as archaeologists have found a Saxon cemetery here, and the Church of St. Mary in Castro was built next to the lighthouse in the 10th or 11th century. It is thought that the Old English name for Britain, Albion, was derived from the Latin albus, meaning white, as an allusion to the White Cliffs. Dover Castle. Dover Castle, the largest castle in England, was founded in the 11th century. It has been described as the key to England owing to its defensive significance throughout history. The castle was founded by William the Conqueror in 1066 and rebuilt for Henry II, King John, and Henry III. This expanded the castle to its current size, taking its curtain walls to the edge of the cliffs. During the First Barons' War, the castle was held by King John's soldiers and besieged by the French between May 1216 and May 1217. The castle was also besieged in 1265 during the Second Barons' War. In the 16th century, cannons were installed at the castle, but it became less important militarily as Henry VIII had built artillery forts along the coast. Dover Castle was captured in 1642 during the Civil War when the townspeople climbed the cliffs and surprised the royalist garrison, giving a symbolic victory against royal control. Towards the end of the war, many castles were slighted, but Dover was spared. The castle had renewed importance from the 1740s as the development of heavy artillery made capturing ports an important part of warfare. During the Napoleonic Wars, in particular, the defences were remodeled and a series of tunnels were dug into the cliff to act as barracks, adding space for an extra 2,000 soldiers. The tunnels mostly lay abandoned until the Second World War. South Foreland Lighthouse. South Foreland Lighthouse is a Victorian-era lighthouse on the South Foreland in St. Margaret's Bay, which was once used to warn ships approaching the nearby Goodwin Sands. Goodwin Sands is a 10-mile-long, 16 kilometers, sandbank at the southern end of the North Sea lying 6 miles, 10 kilometers, off the Deal coast. The area consists of a layer of fine sand approximately 82 feet, 25 meters, deep resting on a chalk platform belonging to the same geological feature that incorporates the White Cliffs of Dover. More than 2,000 ships are believed to have been wrecked on the Goodwin Sands because they lie close to the major shipping lanes through the Straits of Dover. It went out of service in 1988 and is now owned by the National Trust for Places of Historic Interest or Natural Beauty. Second World War. White Cliffs of Dover, seen from France. The cliffs have great symbolic value in Britain because they face towards continental Europe across the narrowest part of the English Channel, where invasions have historically threatened and against which the cliffs form a symbolic guard. The National Trust calls the cliffs an icon of Britain, with the white chalk face a symbol of home and wartime defence. Because crossing at Dover was the primary route to the continent before the advent of air travel, the White Line of Cliffs also formed the first or last sight of Britain for travellers. During the Second World War, thousands of Allied troops on the little ships in the Dunkirk evacuation saw the welcoming sight of the cliffs. In the summer of 1940, reporters gathered at Shakespeare Cliff to watch aerial dogfights between German and British aircraft during the Battle of Britain. Vera Lynn, known as the Force's sweetheart for her 1942 wartime classic, There'll Be Bluebirds Over, the White Cliffs of Dover celebrated her 100th birthday in 2017. That year she led a campaign for donations to buy 170 acres, 0.7 square kilometers, of land atop Dover's cliffs when it was feared that they might be sold to developers. The campaign met its target after only 3 weeks. The National Trust, which owns the surrounding areas, plans to return the land to a natural state of chalk grassland and preserve existing military structures from the Second World War. Dover Museum. Dover Museum was founded in 1836. Shelled from France in 1942 during the Second World War, the museum lost much of its collections, including nearly all its natural history collections. Much of the surviving material was left neglected in caves and other stores until 1946. In 1948 a temporary museum was opened, and in 1991 a new museum of 3 stories, built behind its original Victorian facade, was opened. In 1999, a new gallery on the second floor centered on the Dover Bronze Age boat was opened.